This lesson is for second grade and it's about habitats. In the STEEL standards, there's a section that says that students will be able to make observations of plants and animals to compare the diversity of life in different habitats. So in this lesson, after students have learned about the needs of living things inside their natural habitats, the students will be pretending that they are zoologists and that they're being tasked with designing a new habitat enclosure for their favorite zoo animal. They'll choose the animal, research its needs, and design and draw a habitat enclosure on a large piece of paper, just like this. And when they're designing the habitat, they're going to attempt to make it as close to the real world habitat as it would be possible in a zoo. So they'll try to make sure they're providing the animals' needs, including food, air, water, shelter, and space. And then in the center of the enclosure, you're going to have a blank section about the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper for the zoo guests to enter. So the guests will enter through here and they'll make their way through the enclosure to visit. So this viewing area will be where the Ozobot will be visiting. After all the groups have designed their enclosures, their challenge will be for each child or small group to direct an Ozobot to stop at various points in the enclosure to point out the needs that the animals will have met due to something that the group drew in their enclosure. So the Ozobot needs to identify either a basic need such as water that is non-living, or something that is living such as a plant. Okay, if they identify a non-living need, then it's just going to pause near that item. If they find something that is living, it's either going to make a noise or do some other action. So they get to decide which code they would use to show that they found another living organism. So for example, in a panda enclosure, the Ozobot would pause at a pond, but it would spin near a bamboo plant. And then after visiting the different enclosures, students would have to think about whether there were more pauses or movements in the enclosures, and how would this compare to animal habitats in the real world, in the wild. Can creatures survive without other living things in their environment? What kind of diversity does this show? So I drew an example. So here is an example of the code. So the Ozobot would follow the line. And this is a spider monkey enclosure. So here's my spider monkey. He has found a palm tree and he's eating palm fruit. So he is doing a little tornado code. Now he's at a pond with water and he just paused because it's non-living. Now he's near orchids and caterpillars and he's spinning again. And then he would go make his way over to the mangrove tree and the insects, and he would do some more moves. Now I left a section open here because I would like to show that if a student was struggling, I might draw the lines for them already and then leave just open spaces for the code. Or I could provide stickers with the codes on them that they could use themselves. So that would be a great way to incorporate like help for learning support or students who have fine motor needs. Okay, and then for more advanced learners, they could use the code on Ozoblockly, and they could use a starting point. Oop, I got them a little off thing. And they could code on their own and load the code onto the Ozobot. So he reached the palm fruit, it's living. Oh, he's pausing at the non-living pond. And now he's at the living things again. He's making a little rainbow and spinning around and so on and so forth. So you can see that there's more than one way to code, more than one way for students to approach the lesson. But they would all be responsible for doing some of the research and drawing their enclosure. And then they have a variety of ways to show the difference between the living and the non-living things.